On this episode of Unbillable, check out the scenery behind me. We got something special for you today. We're at the Ironwood Country Club, a beautiful facility for a lunch and learn with leadership Coachella Valley. Join me as we sit down with a local philanthropist, Barbara Keller, for an outstanding fireside chat.
Well, welcome to almost June. It's been a fantastic year. We're coming to the closeout of season. It's the last push for leadership Coachella Valley. We've got our speaker series today, and then we've got graduation coming up next month. Go Leadership Coachella Valley. So with that, I'm Peggy Sue, class of 2008, the best class ever. With that, I'm going to bring up Amir, who's graduated after me.
Come on up, Barbara.
I don't know. This is
They give me a microphone for fun. My name is Amir Afsar. I think most of you know me, and I like it like that. Good to see everybody. I am from leadership class of 2010, the best class ever. I was also the president of a class a couple years after that, 2013, also known as the best class ever, just as a quick side note. But today I'm really excited about hosting, of course, our third and final installment of our speaker series, Luncheon, for this year. I'm very excited to have to my left here a person that needs really no introduction, Barbara Keller. I was amazed to see the bio: labor negotiator, producer, restaurateur, activist. That is those are four very separate and distinct categories, and I look forward to kind of marching through how we did all of those in such a short time. Locally, of course, you're by far best known for your philanthropy, and this list is incredible. You've been involved in things like the McCallum Theater, the Palm Springs Art Museum, the Desert AIDS Project, and of course probably best known for putting some real oomph behind the Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards. You've received the Athena Award, the Palm Springs, a star on the Palm Springs Walk of Fame, the 2013 Business Person of the Year, and the 2017 Riverside County Woman of the Year. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today, Barbara Keller.
This is smashed in, but it works.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. So, before we came here today, I had an opportunity to sit down with Barbara. I tried to sit down with all the people that do these luncheons to give them some warning about just how tough I'm going to be up here. And so we did that. I want to start by bringing this up because most people want to meet at Starbucks, but Barbara insisted that we meet at her house. And it was awesome. Not only is it a beautiful home, but I got a really outstanding insight into the person that sits here. And hopefully we can bring some of that the unique information that you shared with me there in the comfort of your home, we can bring here to the table. I know from our conversation you're an East Coast transplant, so let's hop in our time machine and go just back a few short years to when you were a young woman on the East Coast. Tell me about your East Coast upbringing.
I was just talking about that a little bit with Valerie Powers-Smith because I grew up mostly on Long Island in a town called Great Neck, New York. My grandmother, my mom's mom, lived with us, and she was a tremendous influence on my life. I was talking to Valerie about it because I was walking down the street with her one day, and a colleague came out of a house and jumped on my grandmother. And it stuck in my head my whole life. I am going to be 75 in a few weeks. Yeah. And for all these years, since I was 7 at that time, my back goes up when I see a strange dog coming, and because of that. But when I look back on it, I realize that colleague was just being friendly and saying, "Hi, Grandma." But she didn't take it that way. She went into diabetic shock, and it was just a horrible day. So we don't really know necessarily what influences us in our lives, but that's something that I'll never forget.
So at what point did you decide to leave the East Coast for the sunshine of California?
My husband Jerry and I did a lot of traveling for his publishing business. He's not a restaurateur by trade. It just is something that we kind of got into here one day, but because of his international publishing company, we traveled all over the world, and we found ourselves in Palm Springs several times a year. It rained one day, so we bought a condo.
Literally one day.
One day.
That's all you get out here. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you're speeding through something that I definitely want to take a minute and go back to. So you mentioned that your activism sort of started when you were in school.
It did. I went to college in Washington, D.C., and that was in the early 60s, right during the Civil Rights Movement. And I found myself marching with Martin Luther King, and I was really an activist in college. And I don't know if I would have been quite as active had I not been in Washington, D.C., but and also at the School of International Service to begin with. But that became something so important to me, and I have been marching ever since.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that, the experience, what it was like, how many people were there? What do you remember about that?
I remember more personal things about how I was so angry. I didn't understand, coming from the area I came from and the family I came from, how people could be so cruel to other people. And I think I was born with this gene of compassion. I don't know how else to put it, but I remember even as a little child being very compassionate about friends who would get sick or somebody in their family who would be sick. I remember a little girl who was a twin. The twins were friends of mine, and one of them got leukemia, and the other friend had a party outside for her birthday, and I was just concerned that Gail upstairs in her bedroom couldn't take part in the party, so I went upstairs and spent the whole party with Gail in her bedroom. Their mom never forgot that. She eventually died, maybe within the year. And her mom kept all of the letters I wrote Gail while she was in the hospital and wanted to be buried with them many, many years later. So that's why that she would bring that up to me every time I would see her. And that just stayed with me my whole life.
So you called it the gene of compassion.
Yeah.
You think, did your parents help develop that?
Absolutely.
What do you think they did to help accentuate that?
You know, you learn by example, and my mom was helpful to a lot of charities. My father was adored by people because of his compassion for them, and I just watched this growing up. It was nothing they said to me. You know, Barbara, you need to be this way, or you need to do this, or you need to give of yourself. It was just something I watched. And then I got an application in my mailbox one day to become a docent at the Palm Springs Art Museum, and that really changed my life. So I was a docent there for 18 years, and I was with all sorts of like-minded people who were interested in charity and the arts, and I just felt really good about it. And one fellow, Tim Hanlon, who ran the Wells Fargo Foundation that gave money to charities all over the country, he was on the board with me, and he came and asked me if I would take his place in running the Steve Chase Humanitarian Awards at the Desert AIDS Project. And I said, no, I am way too busy, because I was at that point so involved in so many charities. And I said, but I will go over to the Desert AIDS Project and meet with David Brinkman and see if there is something I can do, because I know it's a wonderful charity. And I went over there, and he took me for a tour. And I don't know, perhaps a third of the way through that tour, I said, I will do anything you want me to do. And so for 7 years, I ran the Steve Chase Awards with Jim Casey. And it was an extraordinary thing. We raised millions and millions of dollars for an extraordinary organization. And I'm still on the board.
So it seems like you took something that was good and you made it great. So tell me a little bit about how we do that. How do you think, what do you think it takes to take something that's good and make it great?
I think you really have to have a compassion for something, for the people that the charities serve. That it's not just about picking any charity out there or being there because your friends are there or wanting your name on something. It's about having a real feeling for it. And if you do, then you can attract other people to it.
Have you felt that way through all the charities you've been involved with?
Sometimes it's just writing out a check, and that is not my favorite thing to do. I mean, I'm happy to write out a check if I can afford to for anything that I really care about, but my favorite thing is to really work. I've gone off boards that had no work for me to do. They had all the money they wanted, and they just wanted my name on there, and that's not a comfort level for me.
I don't know if you felt that while you were talking, but it seemed right when you said, I don't like to write the check, I like to do other things. The earth shook.
Let me go check with that.
How do you make the earth shake? Did you do that?
All right, so we're back at the office. I hope you enjoyed our fireside chat with Leadership Coachella Valley and, of course, Barbara Keller. It's definitely not every day you get to sit down with someone who marched with Martin Luther King Jr. or had lunch with Frank Sinatra, so I hope you enjoyed that. And, of course, if you did, be sure to hit the like button below. That would be awesome. Share this video with a friend if you got someone that might be interested in the content. And, of course, subscribe to keep up to date with me and my man, Luis. We got something new coming for you every single week. And with that, we appreciate you for tuning into this episode, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode of Unbillable.